Hello, everyone. I have just recorded a Venus process. Venus, not just the retrograde, but it just where she's going to be journeying through her Leo. So if you haven't watched that, it might be helpful for you. And we did use this chart as an example of how to look at where that is in your own chart. But this chart is actually the Gemini new moon chart for 2023, and it is on the 18th of June. Remember that I've said it for where I am in the world, so yours might not come up as a Gemini rising chart. That's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter about exactly the houses. You can draw your own chart up for where you are if that's important to you, if you understand that. But otherwise, just look at where the planets are and how they're speaking to each other. So this is on my birthday, and it is an extremely potent point for a new seeded beginning. Certainly for me, because obviously it's what would also be called my solar return, because that's literally the sun reaching the degree that the sun was at my birth. So this is pretty much my solar return chart that I would. So on your birthday, you look at a chart that would take you through to the rest of the year, giving you some guidance and indication. But even if it's not your birthday on this day, it is still a new moon point. So it is a perfect seeding time. And there is a lot of beautiful kind of creative energy here. First of all, the sun and moon are together as always at new moon. Which means they're in this kind of intimate embrace of what are we dreaming for? What are we dreaming for together? How can we go there? Let's plant those seeds, okay? Let's make the wishes. And Gemini is a very creative, imaginative, kind of magical energy in that way. So it's the perfect kind of time to get tapped deeply into the imaginal. And this is made stronger by the fact that the sun and moon are kind of having this quite intense square to Neptune. So Neptune is the imaginal. This is an uncomfortable angle. It's mutable sign to mutable sign. But Pisces and Neptune are very, Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So Neptune is very happy here in Pisces and extremely able to tap into the creative, the magical, the mystical. Also, though, where that can get too much is addictive, obsessive, illusional, delusional. That's where that goes too far. So now we have this Gemini energy with the new moon and sun, and the sun together, making a square to Neptune. You know, there's this strong push and pull of what even is real. But when you want to create something that is so outside of what you know, when you want to dream an impossible dream, this is really a good new moon for that. It's where you get outside of what you think is something that could be real. It's almost where you go to the illusion, but you have such a strong belief in it, like you are writing a novel, you're writing a new story, and this is not an autobiography. You know, this is fiction, this is fantasy. Even let's call it a fantasy novel. You're writing this beautiful fantasy novel that seems impossible, and yet if you seed it at this point, you might be surprised at how close you can get. Of course, we need to action things, but there is something in that space of being in the composting part. You know, your soil is prepped and primed, and compost is a big theme for me. my newsletter this month was very much about compost, which you can sign up for or find on my website. But yes, it's like the soil is beautifully composted, and you're going to drop in these seeds of this crazy fictional idea of something that just can't possibly be real, and yet some variation of that is bound to find you. And it's not for you to understand how or when, but just to have this almost blind faith and trust that you have written the story, you have planted the seed, you have made the wish. And so on some level, it's going to come to you. But also release attachment. Like, you know, Gemini is kind of like, I want it now. Neptune is a very slow transiting planet. So, you know, park it, leave it alone. This is also extremely strong here. I see the Saturn and Neptune in the sky. Saturn, excuse me, and Jupiter in the sky are forming a very tight sextile. Now, a sextile is a happy combination of, I want to work with you, you want to work with me. I heard an astrologer once say, just think of the word like sextile, think sex, you know, it's emerging, it's a gelling, it's a let's get it on kind of feeling. So these two, where Jupiter is expansion and Saturn is contraction, Gemini rules the lungs. So for me, this aspect is kind of like breathe, you know, expand, contract, go into that. And then also recognize with each breath, there is this move forward, move backwards. It's kind of like a tidal thing, in and out, back and forth, ebb and flow, side to side, whatever way you want to see it. Gemini is a dual sign. It has a nervous system kind of energy. So important to bring that back with the breath. It's a really great way to calm a Gemini down. It's not a way a wired Gemini wants to operate. If you're trying to tell somebody who's, and I can speak to this personally, I am a Gemini and I'm a meditation teacher. So I really understand the value of getting okay with something like meditation when it's not your thing. Or when you're, you know, so many of us think I can't meditate. And that's totally untrue, because there's like 5 million different ways to meditate. Okay, sometimes I'm prone to exaggeration, but you get the you get the gist. There's so many different ways to meditate, and they are not always, you know, the same as the idea that you have in your head. So everybody can meditate. And so it's important to actually play around, kiss a few frogs until you find the ones that turn into princes for you. So this whole feeling of these two gas giants, these kind of supportive outer planets saying to us, you have to breathe. And they're bigger than you, because these outer planets, they're weighty, they're slow moving, they've been around, they know their stories, and they're just trying to force this just breathe, just breathe. And so this is a really important thing for us to do. Look at where I'm expansive and where I'm contracting, and how do I bring contraction to my expansion and expansion to my contraction, and how do I just pause and breathe? And whatever that is for you. If you feel like you're a shallow breather and somebody says, do you breathe deeply? And you're just like, whatever, and you don't want to listen to them, go for a walk. You know, get a little cardio, because that's going to actually force you to breathe deeper. There's so many ways to do it. This is not the video for us to dive too deeply into that, but do check out my link below and realize that I do personal readings, and I can really assist with tools if you recognize this pattern and you want some assistance. I love to find tools looking at a person's chart and say, well, this is where you might be struggling and this is what might assist you. But let's not digress too far. Another very tight sextile, to stick with the sextiles, is 11 degrees of Gemini Mercury. So Mercury's in a sign he rules. He's super strong. He's ruling this new moon. He is all about solutions, puzzles. He's the trickster. And Mercury is in a very tight sextile to Venus, okay? So this is also a very potent, and in fact, Venus is in also a little bit of a distant, but still conjunction to Mars. So in a sense, Mercury is also in a sextile, even though it's not as tight, he's in a sextile also to Mars. And so we can say Venus and Mars are the ultimate cosmic lovers, the internalized yin and yang aspects of ourselves, or the sacred masculine, divine feminine, so on and so forth. Whichever languaging you want to use, Mercury is all about language and narrative and storyline and telling that story. So he is merging and gelling with the desire to tell the story of these cosmic lovers in some ways, which again, another pair of cosmic lovers would be Grandmother Moon and Grandfather Sun. So we might say they're actually in bed together right now. They're not quite able to be in bed together. You know, she's chasing him for a while, and actually she's going to be slowing down to do her retrograde. So she's not going to catch Mars. Usually Venus is faster than Mars and she would catch him. But in this case, he's kind of made it up to full speed since his retrograde, and she's slowing down. So kind of a day from now, she hits the point at which she enters her shadow, and she's going to start her slowdown process, and she's not quite going to reach him. So there's something in the story of this new moon as well, of Venus reaching out to Mars, to the man she loves, and just not quite getting there. So if you want to take that into an internalized space, Venus being the attractor, but she's actually reaching towards Mars, trying to reach him, and he's going away from her. He's running in the other direction, and they can't quite gel. So where is that inside of me? And where in my story, remember we're going to that beautiful, mystical kind of magical fictional story, where in this fantastical story am I feeling like I'm not able to reach what I'm trying to attract almost. And then Mars is how we action things. And it's like he's leaving, in some ways, because Venus has looked at it, love, we could say he's leaving love behind. But it's just a process. It's a settling. It's where we have to actually allow that Venus part of ourselves to not rush to love another, but to start to love oneself. And of course, internalizing this, you are Mars, you are Venus. I know I say that a lot, but I just want to reflect on it again. But if you were writing this kind of story, you might see that the elven princess needed to stay home and find her own strength and power, and then go out to fight the battle with her Martian warrior elf kind of thing. So it feels to me like there's so much new potential, but there's also a level of, but it's not a fairy tale that's going to come into fruition. Bam. Be patient. Be patient. Pluto is also just super, super, super involved in everything in the world at the moment. He has just stepped back into Capricorn. By the time we have this new moon, he's in retrograde. He's literally, 29 degrees and 52 minutes. He's literally just dipping his toe back. He spent the last few months at 0 degrees of Aquarius, activating the beginning of a 20-year journey. We've spoken into this. I did a video on this, so I don't want to go too far into that. But everybody with early Aquarius or early air sign energy, the air signs being Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. So anybody with early planets in that beginning part, they will have been feeling that strongly. And anybody with late Capricorn or the earth signs, which would be Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, those would be trining energies. We quite like a trine. It's graceful. If you had square energies, we'll say everybody with early fixed signs. I know if this starts to go over your head, just ignore the parts that are complicated for you and just let them kind of ruminate until they make sense. But for those of you who are trying to understand a bit more deeply, I just want to explain this as well. So for those who have early fixed signs, and your fixed signs are going to be Aquarius, Taurus, Leo. So also we've just had Venus enter Leo, that was activated as well, and Scorpio. Okay, those are your fixed signs. Early degrees, you will be feeling this. If you have late degrees of the cardinal signs, Capricorn, where Pluto's just moved back to, Aries, Cancer, and Libra, those are the cardinal signs. So early or late of fixed and cardinal, early fixed, late cardinal, this is a really crunchy time for you. So when I spoke into if the earth signs or the air signs, that would have been like, oh, I feel like I can actually start that project that I wanted, or oh, I'm excited that I've made this change. I can feel the potential. If it's a square, it's like, I don't want to do it, but I know that I might have to, and I just can't get myself to. It's more of a squeeze. But saying that, when we have the harder aspects, they tend to be the bigger payoff afterwards. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful for you. I know we haven't touched on everything. Jupiter's also very activated here in early degrees of Taurus, activating a lot of things in this chart as well, making things bigger. So it is a hurry up and wait. It is a push and a pull, and it is, above all, for me, super imaginative and creative, and an opportunity for us to dream bigger than we thought we could dream. It's like letting the little Gemini child out to just create a crazy fantasy world that you feel was like, you weren't allowed to dream that way. Now dream that way. I would suggest just dream that way. Of course, maybe not everything is going to come out exactly as you imagined. If in your fantasy story all the people are blue, you might not find the people are blue tomorrow. But what was the energy of having blue people? What was the essence of that? Is that about how they communicate and express themselves through the throat chakra? It's those kinds of things. Don't think about that when you write your imaginary story. Maybe you literally write a story. But afterwards, when you think about, or maybe you do it in meditation, when you think about, why did I think that? That seems so odd. Ask yourself, what is the symbolism of that? How can I understand that in a new way? But don't rush to any of these things. Just let it be magical to start. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching. Check out the links below, and please like, share, subscribe, comment, get in on the conversation. I would love to hear from you. Thanks for your time.